All right, awesome. So it's 12:31, and I think people can get caught up to speed as they begin to come in. This is writing cold emails that convert with myself, Josh Blank, and the rest of the Auto team. We have Holden Bruce on the line as well. And today we're going to cover a few topics within cold email with the overall goal of allowing everyone to get better at what they're doing when they're sending cold emails, because it's becoming more difficult than ever. But if you do it the right way, you can convert, you can build pipeline, and it is a very effective business development and pipeline generating channel. So first off, we're going to do a quick introduction, talk a little bit more about the power of email, how to get your emails read, write about how to write emails that convert, and then at the end, we're going to go through a few questions and answers. So let's jump on in. So my name is Josh Blank. I've been in B2B sales for the last 8 years. I started my career at a company called Main Street Hub, running the full sales cycle. In my last position, I was started at Salonis as an individual contributor, moved up to a team lead role, and then eventually moved into management, where I then ended up founding Auto. So outside of work and writing cold emails and being in sales, I like to play tennis, I like to go skiing, I like to try new restaurants, and yes, I have seen Squid Game. So a quick intro to Auto, as you can see two of our co-founders here. So Auto is a web application that makes it easier for B2B companies to generate pipeline by pulling data from the web and using it to personalize, write, and optimize cold outreach using AI and ML. And we'll get into a little bit more about how this can be relevant later in the presentation. So the first thing that I just want to touch on quickly is why is cold email so important? So almost half the world's population is currently using email today. So 4 billion people in the world are using email. And you can reach just about anybody through a cold email. You can either reach them or their executive assistant. And I think a lot of people who have access to a data source or a data provider, like a ZoomInfo or Seamless AI, you've probably joked around with your friends and try to find Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos' emails. But the idea is that you actually can get through to these people in some way. And it's providing a great medium to get your message to the right person. So if you do it correctly, all the information that you need to try to persuade someone that taking a call with you is going to benefit them is right there in one single email. And if you do it correctly, it's going to help you book more meetings, scale your company efficiently, and drive pipeline growth. And one other quick fun fact is that 8 out of 10 prospects want to talk to a sales rep over email because it's easy for them. It's how they're used to talking to people. So now that we've talked a little bit more about why cold email is so important, let's just talk about some of the current benchmarks. So I think it is vitally important to talk about cold email benchmarks whenever you are, whether you're a rep, whether you're a manager, whether you work in sales ops, because these are the benchmarks that we want to use to overachieve. So this is what the average person is getting from the results of them sending their emails. So currently what we're seeing is a bounce rate of 11%. We're seeing open rates at 20% and a response rate of 1%. So it's not the rosiest picture right now. We see that a lot of emails are bouncing, open rates have gone down, and response rates, although they're staying somewhat stable, it's not great. But the good thing is this is accounting for every single cold email that is being sent. And there are so many ways to improve on what you're doing so you can overachieve these numbers. And that's going to be the goal of this webinar. What we want to do is we want to walk away with these benchmarks in our minds and then work backwards to think, how do we do better than these? How do we improve on that? And let's get into that. Let's get into step one on how we're going to overachieve every single one of these numbers. So I'm gonna tell everyone a little story, and this is going to highlight some of the issues that salespeople are facing today. So I have a friend who's a teacher, and her and I were talking this weekend, and we're explaining to her what we were working on with Auto, and she actually told me that she is having issues because she is a teacher at a private school in New York City, and all of the emails from her parents are going to spam. So we know that Google and we know that they're email providers to tighten up their spam settings, which is something that we're going to have to deal with. And the good news is that with a little bit of effort, not a lot of effort, you can make sure that your emails are going to be placed in the right place. But the foundational building block for getting started is email placement and making sure your emails aren't going to spam. So let's talk a little bit more about how we make sure that that doesn't happen. So whether you're a rep, whether you're a manager, whether you work in sales operations, you probably have someone on your team that can help you with all this stuff. And maybe you want to go do it on your own. You can go ahead and start off this process. But at this point, you need to be doing all of these things to set yourself up for cold email success. So my first recommendation to get started is to check your sender reputation. So go online, you can use something like senderscore.org. You're going to enter your email and it's going to run some tests. And what those tests are going to end up telling you is what your sender score is. So the sender score is what is going to dictate where your email is placed. If you have a good sender score, your email is more likely to end up in the main folder. If you have a low sender score, it's more likely to end up in spam or go into a promotions tab. So first thing that you want to do is get a check of what your sender score is. The next step is to optimize your MX records. Now, this is going to take some more technical help. You might need to bring in your sales ops person. There are specific things that you can do to optimize your MX records. And these are records within your IT and within your email provider that you can play around with that are going to optimize the placement of your email. I will send out at the end of this the presentation with some instructions on exactly how to do that. But it's a good thing to think about, how do we optimize our MX records? The next thing that I want everyone to think about is using an email warmer. Now, the way that Google works is that there are certain activities and certain actions that you take. And if you take those actions, it penalizes you. And if you take other actions, it promotes you and it actually helps you. So what an email warmer, and Mailworm is just one of them. There's a large number of these email warmers that have popped up in the last 5 to 10 years, and probably even less than that in the last 2 years. And essentially what these do is these replicate the process of taking positive steps to improve your sender reputation. So the way they work is that they'll send out an email from your email address and respond to it maybe 1 or 2 on day 1, 5 to 10 on day 2, so on and so forth, where they continuously begin responding to these emails, marking them as important, and that is going to help your sender reputation. Some of you may already be in the inbox penalty box, and your email, too many of your emails are going to spam. I remember very distinctly that I had this problem while I was at Solonis. So it's something to think about, right? Let's start thinking about optimizing our email placement and making sure that the prospects are actually going to be able to read the emails, because the last thing that you want is to spend 5 to 10 minutes on the perfect email that you're crafting for the perfect prospect, and it doesn't get read because it doesn't make it through to your spam folder. And the last thing is to clean your email list. Now, I think a lot of the data providers provide the service, but you're going to be penalized every time you send an email to a bad email address because they think you're spamming, and you don't want that to happen. So this is setting up your inbox for success. Let's talk about a few more steps that you can take to perfect email placement. First thing, remove links and attachments from your emails. This is a very specific step, and there's one caveat. If you're sending a calendar link from Calendly, Google actually knows not to penalize that. In some algorithm they've created, that is about the one link that you can send through. And the reason for not sending links or attachments is you're seeing a lot of phishing attacks. And what I mean by phishing attacks is you have people that are trying to get sensitive information, and the way that they're doing it is by sending you a link, and you go into the link, and all of a sudden, all of your personal information is owned by the other person. So Google is penalizing any email that has a link because they think it could be a phishing attempt, and they want to limit phishing attempts and successful phishing attempts on their platform. This is something that's a little bit more tricky. Try not to send the same message repeatedly with no response. We know we are going to be writing cadences, we're going to be writing sequences, and there's going to be plenty of emails that we send out that are going to look awfully similar to the other ones. So what you want to do is optimize for success and try to limit the amount that you're actually sending. So maybe there's prospects that you are on a fence with, and you think it might be good to send them an email, it might not be good to send them an email, but you're leaning towards no. In the world that we're in now, it might be better if they think you're not in your core ICP to not send that email. And the last thing is to avoid images when you can. Images are also looked at negatively in Google's parameters within their algorithm, and they're going to be penalized. So now that we have gone through all the joys it takes to get your email set up for email placement, let's talk about the next step, which is to actually get your email ready. And we're going to go over some of the core tenets of this over here. So number one, what we're seeing in the market right now is that you want to make the subject line personalized. We're seeing a large response, seeing a significant jump in responses when you're using a merge field for something like prospect first name or company name in the subject line. I think personally at this point, I think first name is probably a little bit more relevant, but we're going to get to that in a second. You want to test those things out. So use the merge fields in the subject line to get a jump in your open rates. Keep it short, right? Do not write emails, do not write subject lines that look like they could come from marketing. I think we've all seen that, and we love marketing. I love marketing. They do a great job, but sales email subject lines should not look like marketing email subject lines, because the goal of each of those emails is different. It's much different between those two things. When we're sending sales emails, we want to get that person to speak to us. When we're sending marketing emails, we want them to take an action, but it's probably not going to be speaking with you. Third thing is to A/B test your subject lines. So I think you should be A/B testing everything, but this is why it's so important with the subject lines. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, there was a subject line that I began using, and this is really a testament to how smart and savvy salespeople are in finding things that work. So 5 to 10 years ago, we would essentially go in, 5 to 10 years ago, you would essentially go in and you could use this subject line called quick question. And quick question could get me, or what at that point was about 30%. So what turns out is a lot of people started using the subject line quick question. So when I changed companies and I met one of the reps at the current company, and I showed him my subject line and I said, this is getting 30%, he goes, well, I'm using the same thing. So you want to continuously be optimizing and A/B testing your subject lines. And I'll almost go a step further, right? All of these subject lines that you see online, and it's limiting the number of words, is limiting the amount of variation that you can have in them. But if you go online and you're reading through a directory of subject lines that get open, well, there's probably going to be a lot more people on the internet that are reading that same guide or reading that same directory of subject lines that get opened. So maybe don't use them. Maybe find a different variation of them, because you want yours to be personalized and you want it to stand out a little bit. The next tenet, the next point, is to try all lowercase. The point of trying all lowercase is to make it blend into the rest of your inbox. So some people will say, well, try putting in a spelling error to make it look even. I don't think you need to do that. I think just trying all lowercase, it's going to look like the other emails. If I'm emailing Holden or I'm emailing my other co-founder, Sam, punctuation is not going to be top of mind for us. It's not going to be the most important thing because we're working with each other day in and day out, and these things split. So try all lowercase to give yourself a bit of a jump, and then target known pain points. So be explicit in the value the customer is going to perceive. So with auto, we could say reduce CAC. We could say something like reduce CAC, customer acquisition cost, or pipeline generation, less effort. Things like that. So be explicit in the value that your product is going to provide that person. So now that we've gone through the subject lines, let's talk a little bit more about personalization, which is going to be important. It's going to hook the reader. It's going to hook the person that's reading the email and show that you're not a bot, that you're an actual human being, and that they should respond to you, or that you are, or you could have created this email with auto, and that it could be user generated and a little help from the computer, but you are still a human being. So core tenet number one, and I think this rule it needs to be said first off, is that you don't want to spend your entire day, and you do not want to spend too much time personalizing a single email. I think 5 to 7 minutes is probably the sweet spot. And with that being said as well, save these really personalized emails. If you're going to take more time than that, make sure that they are the people that you need to get in contact with, right? We all know if we're prospecting into an account, there's an IT team, and we all know that there's certain keywords, buzzwords, triggers that we look for to signal to us that that is a good person for us to reach out to. Save your really personalized emails for those people. Relevant personalization is the most effective form of personalization. And what we mean by that is we want to connect the dots between what someone cares about and what we do. So what I mean by relevant personalization is finding the prospect talking about something, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on, in an article, in a blog post, in a podcast. Find where they're talking if they're a high value person, and then figure out how does our solution relate to what they're saying. And we'll get into examples of that in a moment. Connect to the topics the prospect cares about. So going back to relevant personalization, if they indicate that they care about something, you want to be able to match what you do with what that person cares about. So if that person is talking about using AI solutions to reduce manual tasks, well, I want to reference that in the email that I'm writing to that person. If you cannot personalize at the individual level, personalize at the company level. So if we see an example of this is that we have triggers that go on with companies all the time. So a company could raise a fundraising round. They can make a key new hire. They could find someone else. They could release a new product line if they're enterprise. Hone in on that. If you have a product that can help them with whatever goal they've just achieved or whatever next stage of the business they're moving to, that's a good time to hook in what you're doing. Now, unless you have a clear connection, try not to hit on personal things. We see too often that people struggle and they're trying to tie two things that don't really go together in a way, and they end up just being very general and seem somewhat disingenuous, like you're being forced to personalize something. Like you're being forced to personalize something, so you got to really try to personalize it to that person. If it's not there, don't force it. Go to the company level, keep it relevant, and keep it on something that that person's going to care about. Name drop competitors when you can. Always, always, always name drop competitors. I don't care if it is, and when I say competitors, companies that are close to them, the closer they can get, the better. That doesn't mean that every software company, you can go around name dropping every software company. There's sort of a pyramid to how these things work, where it's close competitors all the way down. But if you can weave in competitors to this, it's important. So let's talk about some examples of good personalization. So good. Hey, Jim, noticed your article on IT Business Edge. It was interesting how you mentioned that you believe the future of customer service is AI-based. If I'm selling a customer service AI solution, bam, right there, right? That is what you want to relate to, and you want to mention that up front, because it's going to say, oh, this guy read what I'm doing. He understands what I care about, and he understands my point of view that, you know what, I'll read what this guy has to say. Let's take a look at a bad example. Hey, Sandra, I saw you have a Chihuahua on Twitter. I'm a big fan of dogs as well. Everybody likes dogs, unless you're a cat person, and even cat people like dogs sometimes. So this isn't really tying things together. There's probably better information you can find on Sandra than, I see you have a Chihuahua, I'm a big fan of dogs, because almost everybody's a fan of dogs, and that's just not tying things together. Good. Hey, Pam, I heard you speaking on the Business of Sales podcast when you mentioned sales cycles have been getting longer during COVID. It made me want to reach out, right? Pam is already talking about a pain point. Pam is talking about how our sales cycles keep expanding. So if we have a solution that is adjacent or can help with that, that is going to be extremely valuable for that person. That, Howard, hey Howard, I was reading your research paper from college on applied physics. Have you considered using chatbots to grow your business? This is an example of grasping at straws in a personal, professional setting. These have nothing to do with each other. He might be spinning that you found his research paper, and you might get points for that. You could. But the idea is that you want to tie these two things together. You don't want this to be two things that are just going out into the universe and throwing it out there. You want to tie those two things together. And then an example of personalizing something at the business level. Hey, Tina, saw that your company name recorded your most successful quarter to date this week. Congrats. Now, this is an example of something I might do, and I might want to personalize it and follow up on this, but we're being relevant to what she's caring about. We're being relevant to what's going on within her professional life and what's going on within their business. Bad example is, and I love picking on UCLA for whatever reason, because I think I did hear someone actually write an email like this. Hey, Miguel, noticed that you went to UCLA. My sister's cousin's friend also went to UCLA. A lot of people have gone to UCLA. This isn't really personalized. Your prospect probably isn't going to care. So now that we've taken a look at personalization, let's take a look about crafting the perfect elevator pitch. Now, I want everyone to take literally 10 seconds. Think about, what does your product allow the person to achieve? You can just type it into your browser if you have to. What does your company allow the customer to achieve? Okay, great. So you want to lead with what the company allows you to accomplish. That's a hook. That's a hook. I'm going to care about what I get from using this product. So think about what they're going to accomplish. In the example, if we're using auto, for example, you're going to be able to generate more pipeline and build CAC. Great, and you're going to see this in an example. So now that we've established what is the value of my company and what do we do, right? Here's what we need to do in the next step. And this is often done in the next line. So when we're crafting these benefits, there's going to be a lot of overlap between what your product and all the other people allows them to achieve. There's going to be, we save money, we help you become more efficient, we help you save time, we help you make more money, so on and so forth. There's only so many value props you can have. And that's fine. And we can throw in some of our own lingo, but you've got competitors in the space. So we've established what the benefit is going to be. Now, this is the prove it statement, right? This is where you need to drive home what your solution does and prove to the person that it can help solve that problem. So we're going to get on to an example of how this is done, but drive home the value with how your company does it and do it and position it in a unique way that you are the only ones that are doing this. So this is an example. Auto helps companies reduce their CAC and build pipeline. Okay, great. Lots of other sales solutions help companies reduce CAC and build pipeline. This is what our technology does. Our technology pulls data from the web and so on and so forth. So we are stating what we do, we are stating what we benefit and how we help people, and then we are proving in subsequent statements how we do it. Final thing when you're writing these emails is to finish with a strong CTA or a call to action, which is mostly going to be, let's get some time on the calendar. Or it could just be asking a question around the pain point, which you've seen has been effective, recently. So only include one CTA. You're going to overwhelm people if there's too many CTAs. Always include the CTA in the last line of your email. This can be played around with, but for the most part, you're going to see much higher response rates when the CTA is in the email. Mention competitors, another example to name drop. Given how this is how your competitor 1 and competitor 2 uses us, when works better to connect? Hang it on them a little bit. You don't want to completely run them through the broken glass with the pain in this, but it's good to mention that. Position, and this is something that's vitally important, is position your ask as low lift for the prospect. Nobody wants to go into a call thinking that they're going to be there for 45 minutes to an hour and it's going to take up that much of your time. I think we've all seen those surveys that people get, right? Someone sends you a survey and someone sends you a survey and you go through it and it says, oh, the survey's going to take 3 minutes. Okay. You're probably a little bit more likely, and the reason people do this, and it's so prevalent in when we're sending surveys out, is because people want to know that it's going to be low lift and the lift is going to be asked. And it's going to be a low ask. So you want to position it as this is going to be easy for you. This is going to be easy for you to do. This is not a big thing. And finally, test. And then if you want, try not asking for the meeting in the email. You could throw in a line, how relevant, and always make it open-ended. Always make your ask open-ended, right? What we don't want is, does Tuesday work for you? No. Case closed. Do you struggle with getting customers? No, I'm fine. Talk to you later, right? So what we want to do is leave the ask open-ended. How does time 1 or how does time 2 work for you? How relevant is this pain point to what you're seeing today? So now that we've gone through the CTA and we've wrapped up the email, we've gone through the whole thing, we'll do it, and we've got some more examples of CTAs over here. How does, when you have 30 minutes to chat in the coming days, how would later this week or next week work for a brief call? Always leaving these things open-ended. Do not make them try your best and almost never make them close it. So this is an example, and I'm using my former colleague, Trevor, as an example. And this is pulling everything together. Hi, Trevor. Notice that your colleague, Olivia, you and your colleague, Olivia, visited the RevGen team to discuss best practices for business development. Trevor posted on LinkedIn that he visited the RevGen team. I thought it was interesting that you brought up the importance of using technology effectively in the BDR role. Now, you can find this information online. I'm using this for an example, but we're tying these two things together, right? You spoke about this, you went here, and I saw that, and you spoke about this. Now, pulling it together, Auto allows you to reduce CAC and accelerate pipeline generation, and this is our elevator pitch. And we're making it easier to say this is relevant between paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. And then finally, we're going to talk about competitors in this middle statement, and then we're going to finish with a strong CTA that's open-ended. So this is covering all of the things that we've done and all of these building blocks that we've covered in steps 1 through 5. And we've put it together in a nice way. One of the other things to hit on quickly with this is you want to make sure that you're spacing your lines. Make it as easy as possible for you to do this. So let's quickly just jump through, and I think we might have a question. Other email best practices. So here's what you want to do. Keep it short, 200 words or less. I think you can go a little bit above 200 if you're going to make a good point, but try to keep it as short as possible. You don't need to sound business formal. Talk to people in a business casual way. We don't want to lead in with slang and all that. Let's talk to your friend on a Friday or Saturday night or when you're at the water cooler, but you don't want to sound like you're being too formal. Hey is a better response than hi. So we're not saying yo, we're saying hey, which is kind of in the middle. Name drop competitors who are using it. We've hit on this a few times. It's very important. Send at the correct times. Now, this is something else that you're going to play around with. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Tuesday through Thursday are typically the best times to send emails. These things, there's different studies that go out there. The predominant thinking is that Mondays are hectic, Fridays people have their eyes up the door, hit them when their schedules begin to calm down a little bit, and they've got extra time on their hands. Format your email correctly with spaces between lines and paragraphs. And finally, test. Test everything. Keep exact notes on what your bounce rate is. Keep metrics on what your response rate is. Keep metrics on what your conversion rate is, how people respond to your emails. And then test those things over time. And set up these tests to be validated. So structure the test in a way where we're saying, I want to test in a subject line, for example, how does a merge field compare with a pain point? And then set up a test in a formal way with parameters that say, we're going to send 1,000 emails of each, and whichever one goes better, we are going to use. And that's how it's going to work. So we've got a quick demo of Auto over here, which I'm going to start from the beginning. So auto, and this is going to help you personalize the email. I'm going to look over here. So we can put in things like article and publication. It'll pick up on it, and keyword. We're going to continue. We'll plug in a LinkedIn profile. We're going to plug in the LinkedIn profile for Dave, for someone we speak with at HBS. Otto is going to get to work, and Otto is going to go ahead and generate the email. And what you're going to get over here is this email that is fully optimized and personalized for Dave Anderson. So you can see over here, he was featured in the Medium post about HBCU VCs in 2021, talking about the future of venture capital. And that is something that's going to be relevant to what he cares about. And then finally, if you would like to come in and you would like to be part of user testing and helping us build a solution, feel free to reach out to me or my colleague Sam. I know someone was poking in the door over there. Feel free to reach out to myself or Sam anytime. We like to talk to people about emails all day. If you want to have a one-on-one session where we go through these things, we're more than happy to do that. And that is the finality that is the end of the presentation we have for today. I know we are currently 2 minutes over, but if anyone has questions, feel free to pop it into chat and we will answer these as they come in. If you have to jump, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you coming and spending half an hour with us, hopefully during your lunch break. We really do appreciate that. Feel free to reach out to us anytime, and enjoy the rest of your days.